Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Travis, aka Mr. Cornerstone,
and Monay, aka confidently_free,
from the Becoming One podcast. The podcast will begin shortly, but first, we have a quick message for you about Anchor.
If you haven't already heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. They literally take away all of your excuses.
First of all, it's free, and who doesn't like free? The creation tools that Anchor supplies allow you to record and edit your podcast right on your phone or computer.
And after you're done recording and editing, Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
You can even make money from your podcast. Now, maybe you're listening to this like, well, I don't have 10,000 subscribers or followers. Well, guess what? Again, Anchor thought of that. There is no minimum listenership.
Anchor is literally everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey y'all, this is Confidently Free. You are listening to episode 7, part 2 of Mom Guilt. When we last left off, me and Travis were talking about what it looked like for me to quote unquote take a break. So the conversation got really interesting. So I'm just going to sit back and let the audio speak for itself. Let me know what you think about the episode. Where it's like, if there's a separation between myself and them, it seems like, and maybe I'm waiting too long to take it. Maybe, okay, this is going to sound like a very strange analogy, but I'm going to go for it. So you know how when you're potty training a kid and they have to learn what it feels like that they need to go to the bathroom? Mm-hmm. Okay,
yes, I do.
When they start to learn, yes,
potty.
Anyway, so when they first start to learn what it feels like to have to go to the bathroom, they might not necessarily go as quickly as they need to. So like Atara, she's only 1.5, but sometimes she'll tell you she needs to potty, but she's already went to the bathroom in her diaper.
Right.
But as she gets older, she'll start to notice, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Then she'll get up and go to the bathroom and do what she needs to do in enough time. And I'm thinking maybe I'm not catching it early enough to the point where it that break that I'm taking doesn't feel like it's
like, maybe it's still peeing on yourself.
Like it just, maybe I'm not taking the break early enough. Maybe I'm waiting until that breaking point, so to speak, or that part, that point where I just explode, or implode rather. And I'm just not being proactive enough and saying, okay, I feel this coming on. Let me go ahead and take care of this now. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's felt like that. Mom guilt. I don't know if I said it earlier, but almost like 90% of women feel mom guilt at some point. I think it's actually like 87% of women have felt mom guilt at some point, and 21% of women feel it either most of the time or all of the time. So when you're feeling like that, it's hard to convince yourself that it's okay to take time for yourself. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to just go and be by yourself. And I think the reason why that's so hard is because women, or mothers rather, are always painted as these nurturers. And so when you're not with your kids, they're not getting that nurture that you would be giving to them otherwise, where if you were present. So it's not as bad, I don't think anyway, with TJ, because he's a little bit older, but like Aaliyah being really small, for example, I know that I can leave and go places and not take her with me, but and again, a part of it might just be because she's nursing. She can take a bottle, and she's taken one before, but it just seems like I can feed her. I should be the one feeding her, which is probably why I haven't given her any baby food yet. Haven't actually fed her any real food yet, or I haven't, given her a bottle myself, because I just feel like that's something she should be getting from me. And I don't need to give her. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you told me you just wanted to wait a few more months.
I did. I do. Because at that point, think about it. At that point, a few more months from now, Okay, cool. She's not going to be nursing all the time because it's going to be normal to be eating that much food.
Well, I'm going to still give her these sweet potatoes.
I'm fine with you doing it. Just me personally, I have not come to that conclusion within myself that, oh, I don't mind doing this, or, oh, it's fine if I do this. So yeah, mom guilt is, I don't want to say it's normal. I don't want to call it normal, but I will say it's not uncommon. And I think part of me thought that being a stay-at-home mom, like I would feel less guilty, but being around them so much and wanting to take those breaks, like makes me, well, it doesn't make me feel guilty, but it creates an opportunity where I feel guilty, so to speak. You almost feel like, and so I think for me, and feeling mom guilt and knowing that I need to do forms of self-care, I need to start being more vocal and honest and transparent in what it is I'm feeling when I'm feeling it. And I think it's just difficult because to admit that, well, I'm not going to speak for everybody. I'm going to speak for myself. It makes me feel like I'm not doing my job well. And that doesn't make any sense because like we just said, at some point everybody's going to need a break. But I think just because I'm often letting myself get to that point where I almost need to be told to go take a break, it makes me feel like I'm not.
You ain't getting to that point.
Because remember you were like.
You have to be told.
That's what I'm saying.
You are at that point.
Okay. So anywho, all I'm saying is I think it's that sense of, Monay, you need to go take a break, where it's like, man, I'm just not doing it today. And, nobody's perfect, but when you have those days when you just knocking it out the park, it's like, okay, we rocking and rolling. But when you have those days where you dragging, because you're dealing with tiny human lives, like you want to make sure you're not doing anything to where they have to recover from their childhood. I know that I feel like that a lot. Like when I get frustrated or when I am, directing them louder than I would prefer, or I'm just losing patience. You don't feel like you're your best self, and you feel like you often can feel like you need to bring your best self to the plate every time. When you step up to the plate every morning, when you get up, you need to give your best version of yourself. And I don't often feel like that. I feel tired. I feel irritable. I feel agitated. And I know that it's sensed by them. And I don't want to be like that in front of them, which makes zero sense because I'm human. So to not feel those things would make me unhuman. But I don't know. I just don't want to do something to where they have to then come and recover from their childhood, 20 years from now.
Everybody gonna recover from something.
I know. You just sometimes you feel like you're damaging your children.
We might be.
And I don't want to do that. But I'm not perfect. But it's just like, it's this constant voice in your head that tells you need to be doing better.
But there's there's a happy medium, right? Mm-hmm. There's always something better that we can do. Do you agree or no?
I agree.
So there's always something better that we can do. There will always be something better that you can do. There will always be ways that you can be better. But you will never be perfect.
I know.
So, just work on what you can.
And I don't like to focus on what I don't want. I know that a lot of times I will talk about what I don't want, or I will talk about what I hope doesn't happen. It is very hard. Well, maybe I should stop saying that it's hard. I need to be more mindful to use positive language.
Because your brain's always listening.
Yes. And you can program your own. You can program and reprogram your brain.
Right.
You can train your brain. Ain't that what you always be saying? Train your brain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Train your brain to do what you want it to do.
Yeah. So yeah, train your brain. So, but mom guilt is really just one big lie of feeling like you're not doing enough. Because honestly and truthfully, and I know I should be focusing and talking about what I do want and what I do want to see. If you ask your kids how you're doing, they often are much more gracious and show much more grace and love towards you, about you, than you do for yourself. And I know moms have a tendency to be extremely critical of the things that they do, the things that they say, the ways that they act, because you're always feeling like there's just more that you should be pouring out. Even when you have nothing, you just feel like you should just be giving it your very last drop. But how good are you as a mother if you are completely empty with nothing else to give, and you literally have nothing? How good, what good would you be to them when you've given every single ounce of your energy, mentally and emotionally? If there's nothing left, there's nothing to then bring forth out of yourself. Does that make sense? I know what I'm trying to say, but it ain't coming out right.
Basically what you're saying is you wouldn't be of service to that child by giving everything that you have.
Yes.
But here's my thing. Like, some people don't really have any other choice. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, we even watched Miss Virginia yesterday, which she was in a situation where her child... It's a movie on Netflix, by the way. So good. Go watch it. But she's trying to change legislature because the schools were so bad. And she was in a low-income neighborhood, and what she needed for her son, she couldn't afford. So she changed the laws, or she fought to change the laws so that her son could get what he needed. Because I believe that there's a purpose to all of this. Yeah. The mom guilt comes out of chemical reactions that happen in the brain.
Doggone hormones.
Well, I mean, some of the same reactions happening. So she was willing to men as well. But we're not talking about men. We're talking about women. So when you're feeling this mom guilt, I believe that there's a purpose for it. I'm not sure what that would be, right? Mm-hmm. Haven't really looked into it much, honestly. But there's a point where you have to get to, where you're like, okay, me giving my all in this area might not be the best option, because you're going to have to give your all in some area, whether you spread it out everywhere or you focus specifically on your kids. You're going to have to give your all somewhere. So in the case of Miss Virginia, she gave everything that she could to get her child into the private school, right? Mm-hmm. So she put him in private school. She went out and got another job. She was working herself to death, and she was learning all at the same time. She was tired. You saw there was a scene where she was trying to study, and she was literally falling over in her book. She's given everything that she can to try to get her child to this school, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in the end, and if you haven't seen it, sorry, but
just fast forward.
Stop listening and go watch it and come back. In the end, she doesn't make it that first round, right? And she ends up giving her all in another area, but it's still the same goal, right? Mm-hmm. The goal was to get a better education for her child. So instead of giving her all in working multiple jobs to get that better education, she gave her all in changing the laws to get that better education for her child and the surrounding children. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? So for you, I believe that you're going to have to give your all to something. Whether it's, if you pick the kids, no matter what, you're going to give your all to something. I believe that everybody will give their all to something. It's just that you have to pick what your purpose is, what you're trying to give your all to. I don't think it's bad to give everything that you have. I think it's bad to give everything that you have and then not go and replenish yourself. Mm. So if you're focusing on your kids as a mother, right, and you're giving everything you're tired, you're still going. Because that happens just as normal parents. You go and you do when you're tired. You give when you have little. You serve when you feel like you need to be served, right? So you're giving everything that you have. But then I think where it becomes dangerous and unhealthy is that you felt this mom guilt 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you've given out your all, which to me says that you're a healthy mother, because you want to be a better mother. So you're going to feel guilty when you don't feel like you're being your best. Now, I don't have the full grasp of mom guilt because I'm not a mother. But you feel like you could be doing better or that you would want to do better, right? That's like a sign to me of a great mother because you want to do better. You're going to keep continuing to try to do better, right? But if you get to that point where you need to be replenished and you don't take that time to replenish yourself, now you're in the dangerous part.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think it gets dangerous.
So you're more so referring to someone who does not kind of participate in self-care, so to speak.
Right.
So you're just like pouring out and giving, but you don't do anything to refill yourself as it pertains to your mental and emotional state.
Yeah.
I think that happens more often than not, though.
Yeah, it does.
And
that's something that has to change.
I don't know if people actually realize they're doing it.
Yeah. And then another thing would be that, like you said earlier, that you don't think you're doing it often enough. See, we get to a point as humans where, oh, well, I feel fine, so I'm going to stop doing whatever it was that got me to this point, right? Whether it's exercise, oh, well, I'm in good shape, maybe I'll just dial it back a little bit.
Or like when folks are taking medicine, they're like, I feel great, and then they just stop taking it.
Yeah, they stop taking it. Or when they're going to the chiropractor because they got into an accident, oh, well, I feel okay now, so I'm going to stop. Or, and the list goes on and on and on. Or when you're in a relationship and, oh, well, we're not fighting right now, so I'm going to focus my energy elsewhere. Well, if you focus your energy elsewhere, very soon, you will be
elsewhere.
You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to feeling fine or feeling okay, that's how you want to feel. And that's when you should be taking the self-care. Because if you don't, then you will soon not feel okay.
So you're saying basically that self-care should be kind of scheduled or penciled in instead of waiting until you feel like you need it, because at that point you're not looking at it as something you need to do maintenance on.
Right.
It's just something you need to fix and repair based on that particular isolated situation. Well, I was just having a bad day, so I need to go do some self-care, versus I make sure I focus and take care of myself in this way on these days at this time, because this is me having me time and making sure my tank is full.
Right. And and I'm sorry for anybody who's listening, but this is the best way that I can explain it. Is if you were a car.
He's not comparing women to cars. He's using it as an example.
Yeah. If you were a car, you would need your oil changed, as cars need, and the average car needs in today's society. You would need your oil changed every certain amount of miles. You know, the average car, if you're not working on a hybrid, is 3,000 miles. You should get your oil changed, is what they say. Mm-hmm. Can you go 3,500?
Probably.
Yeah, you could. I've done it. Could you go 4,000?
You sure can.
Yeah, you could. I've done it. Should you? No. Because after 3,000 miles, the engine oil becomes dirty and it starts to leave more sludge in your engine. Mm-hmm. You continually do 4,000, 5,000 miles. You continually to build up sludge in your engine, right? Mm-hmm. You keep doing that over time, and sooner or later, your engine will not be performing the way that it should. You will lose your gas mileage, you will lose power, you lose pickup. X, Y, and Z happens because you've built up all this stuff in your engine, and now you have to pay an extreme amount of money or that price to get that cleaned out or to fix that issue of the sludge you've built up in your engine. Now, for people, it would be, well, I didn't do my self-care every week like I said that I need. And I kept doing this over time. Now all of a sudden you blow up on your kids or your husband or boyfriend or whoever, right? Now you need to do you have to pay the cost of having that conversation because you blew up. And if you just decide not to change your engine oil, then what happens is your engine blows up, right? Mm-hmm. And now you have to pay the cost of getting a completely new engine. So not only have you possibly hurt people that could have been in your car, but now you're paying to fix yourself as well as, have to get a new engine. So for people, if you don't take self-care, that could end up in depression. Anxiety can go through the roof. Your body will start to shut down because you're not taking care of it. That's when you see people, the skin isn't as vibrant or glowing, or, you start to age. People get the gray hairs faster just because of the stress that we have on a normal basis. You'll gain weight. You'll feel stressed out. And, at that point, it's like, okay, all systems, shut it down. You need help right now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because I'm not a car person. I don't know.
But you probably just would have came up with something else.
Yeah, but that's a good analogy though, because you're right. You don't handle that, you gonna hurt yourself and other people around you,
right,
in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know. So I think a lot of times in motherhood, selflessness is looked at as a necessity, but it's not always executed well. It always, or it often can turn into self-neglect. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there is enough conversation or awareness about what self-neglect looks like in motherhood. And I think because a lot of mothers are often putting everybody else before themselves, that then opens the door to legitimate mental health issues and depression and stuff. There's already postpartum depression,
right,
but then a lot of people are dealing with the 4th trimester, and then now there's this thing called the 5th trimester.
And y'all swing speed. Whew.
And the crazy thing is, so it's different when, women, if you have like a 2 or 3, 4, 5-year-old, but when you have a baby to a 1-year-old, especially if you're nursing, it's already a big dip and change in hormones right after you have the baby. But then if you're nursing, your hormones are still not, regulated until you're done nursing, which is why, like myself or other women who are nursing and then they get eye exams. So right now, like, my vision has gotten progressively worse with every kid. But I went and got glasses not too long after Aaliyah was born, which it's helping me and serving me right now. But my vision is still not going to regulate itself until I'm done nursing her, because that's just a side effect of the hormones. And I just think with all of the different changes that we go through and, hormonally speaking, and then, some people get on birth control, it's just a lot. I don't think women are often conscious of the fact that these are things that they need to be thinking of as it pertains to themselves, because they're so used to taking care of everybody else. It's like, oh, well, I need to make sure, I'm scheduling, the kids' dentist appointment and doctor's appointments and getting them to practice and getting them to here and there and everywhere else. And they drop the ball on themselves. They make sure they don't drop the ball anywhere else, or at least they think they're not. But the ball almost always gets dropped as it pertains to the mom and taking care of herself. And I don't think a lot of women come into motherhood knowing that that's something that should continue, because a lot of people take care of themselves before they have kids, but right, after they have kids, it's almost like that idea of making sure I'm good no longer exists, as if to say, once you become a mom, you don't matter anymore.
Well, it's kind of hard when they're young, just because, like we've said earlier, they need so much. Like, they're very needy. Mm-hmm. The younger they are. So there's a time period where you can't really do much about it, it seems like. Besides like trade off, if you have that ability to trade off with the, either the father or somebody else who is supporting you. Mm-hmm. So there's there's a portion of time there where it's hard.
It's hard, but I think some people in that hard phase, however long that lasts, they just kind of accept that as the new norm. And I don't like the term new norm, but I think for a lot of people, it becomes their new norm and they never come out of that.
Right.
Because like Aaliyah, yeah, she's not sleeping through the night right now, but that's not going to be the reality forever.
No.
And so if I just got into the habit of just having an attitude about her because she always waking us up in the middle of the night as if it's gonna last forever, that can impact how our whole relationship is, because I'm just annoyed that you keep waking me up and you won't let me relax. So now I got an attitude with you. So every time you want something, I'm snappy and whatnot.
Right.
It's not gonna last forever.
No.
And at some point when I do get to sleep through the night, it's gonna be beautiful and I'm gonna appreciate it so much. And I think a lot of times when women think of self-care, they don't understand how small self-care could be. It could be something so quick or easy. So example, I got that little, what is it, like an electric kettle downstairs. If I was like a huge, I mean, I drink tea, but I'm not a huge tea person. Some people don't like to make hot drinks because with little babies, you can never enjoy it because when you make it, it get cold before you can finish the whole thing. If it was that serious, I got my little electric kettle. I'm waiting till she take a nap. Boom. Have me my cup of whatever I want to drink. Now I'm enjoying my nice hot beverage versus making it and trying to take care of her at the same time. So you kind of got to look for little pockets of time, even if it's something small. Bubble baths. A lot of people don't take bubble baths. You put a little bit of lavender essential oil in that, man.
Yeah. I wouldn't really advise that in this house, though, because we only have one real tub.
Oh, no, not here.
Yeah.
No, not us.
No, that's day tub.
Yeah, I don't mess with that.
Yeah.
But anywho, so yeah, it's hard and it's difficult, but I want to just encourage people to know that it's not impossible to take care of yourself as a mom. Mom guilt happens and it's real. I'm not gonna pretend like it doesn't exist. But we have to do everything that we can to make sure that we're not allowing it to rule how we function on a daily basis. When it comes up, acknowledge what you're feeling, address what you're feeling, but don't allow that to be just this big storm cloud that just rests over you day in and day out and becomes your new norm. Because while it might be common, I don't by any stretch of the imagination want to acknowledge it as being normal. It's something that happens, it occurs, and part of it is just kind of trying to maneuver and navigate through this new identity or a new part of your identity or role that you take on when becoming a mom. Before you didn't have to worry about, a kid's health, and you didn't have to worry about getting somebody to practice on time or buying somebody, this new pair of shoes or extra pair of clothes because it might have just been you. But then when you step into this role of having to take care of someone else, you literally raise the stakes for yourself. You raise your own expectation on what you should be doing, when the best way to think about it is, would I be judging, some other woman that I care about to this standard or to this level? Would I be expecting all of this out of them, or would I show them some grace? And I think if we started showing ourselves the same amount of grace that we show the people that we love, then that would help us better maneuver through the instances or situations of mom guilt that can pop up in our day-to-day lives. So I think just showing self-care, self-love, and grace to ourselves would help us kind of get through this mom guilt that we can experience during motherhood. So
yeah, and I think it's just as important for you to get what you need during, that time that your emotions are, up and down, or you're feeling whatever it is that you're feeling. I think it's just as important for you to get whatever you need during that time as it is for you to drink the water that you need for your body to move and thrive. And, and that goes into taking care of yourself. What does my body need to operate at its best?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I believe that you should just care about yourself to the point where you're going to make sure that you have what you need so that you could operate at your best. And that's what, I'm not speaking for you as a mother, but I'm speaking just on the other side. That's what I need from you, is for you to operate at your best. I don't care if you're taking breaks. That's not an issue. That's expected. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And just want to chime in right there. Earlier today, I think it was today or yesterday, it might have been today, there was a caption on one of the pictures that I posted. And I said something along the lines of, as it pertains to the kids, their existence caused me to feel a sense of vulnerability and find strength in the most unlikeliest of places. Something along those lines. And when I feel vulnerable, and I'm just being transparent right now, vulnerability for me a lot of times translates to weakness. Even though being vulnerable is one of the strongest things that a person can do. So me being in need, needing a break, needing to ask for help with them, needing to cry, needing to be away from them because I'm not all right, that doesn't make me feel strong. And maybe I need to just stop thinking about what it makes me feel like and just rest in what I know, or rest in what's true rather. Right. So
your feelings change literally by the second.
Yes.
And that's everybody. That's not just women, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And so I think with mom guilt, it brings on this sense of vulnerability that we would rather just either overlook or kind of stuff and not acknowledge. I mean, we know we feel it, but we don't want to tell everybody else how guilty we feel. We don't want to tell everybody else how anxious we feel, or how we might not be, rising to the occasion in our own minds. You don't want to talk about that. You don't want to acknowledge that. You don't want that to be the reality, your perception. You don't want those things, but in your mind, that's what's in existence right now. And to be in a place of vulnerability and open about that vulnerability and transparent about it, therein is where the strength lies. And it's difficult it's almost a form of cognitive dissonance. Vulnerable and strength aren't often associated together. But this feeling or this sense of weakness, it makes me, or it pushes me to a point where it's I don't need a break. I don't need to ask for help because I got this. Or at least I want to have it. I should have it. Yeah. So to acknowledge that I don't have it points me towards vulnerability, which even though vulnerability is strength, it doesn't feel like it.
Right.
So I try to stay away from it as much as I can.
Yeah.
Not just with them, just with a lot of different things.
Yeah, it reminds me of in the Word when God's, pretty much comforting us in our weakness, and He's telling us that when we are weak, that's when He can be strong. Mm-hmm. It's basically when you allow yourself and when you admit that you're weak in an area, you can allow Him to be strong in that area for you. Mm-hmm. Right? And when it comes to marriage and with just a team in general,
I wouldn't have never thought about that. Well, thought of it like that. Because,
your weaknesses are just as important as your strengths. Get some assistance on doing, right? So when it comes to a relationship, if you walk around as if you're strong in every area, then you're not going to get the help that you need. And as a result of that, the team or the relationship becomes weak, because really what it is we are a team, because then the team knows what they can and cannot put on you. Mm-hmm. And what you would need help, or what you would need to with our kids, right? Mm-hmm. So with TJ, with Atara, with Aaliyah, we as a team produce the nurture and the environment and whatever it is that they need to grow up into who they need to become. So one of our roles is to make sure that we're on the same team. Now, if you say, I'm good, I got this. I'm good, I got this. And you're strong, which I understand what you're saying. And that's not up to anybody else to pull those areas out of you. That's up to you to be vulnerable enough to reveal those areas so that we can work together to get to where we're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. Because if you were in a position where you're weak at, and I could do that spot where you're weak at, right? If that makes sense. If I could do that spot better during this period of time, then that's what I should be doing and not you. Mm-hmm. Because that's about the team. It wouldn't be about, each other's pride or feelings. It'll be about what are we trying to do as a couple, as a team, as friends. What direction are we going in? When I believe, and this is just my personal belief, but when I believe that when people are in a relationship and it starts to get about then you break that connection or that direction. So if we're a team, but unless you reveal where you're weak, I can't help you and be strong in those areas of your life that I can hold you up in unless you reveal them. Then it's just as important for you to reveal those weaknesses and say, I can't, or I'm not there yet, rather, because I don't really like the word I can't, because I believe we can all grow in these areas, but you should be able to say or willing to say, this is where I need help in, right? Like for the past 2 years, year and a half rather, I've said, okay, Monay, I went and got my growth. Let's see what you need. And I don't believe that you've really given me anything to actually help you with in the last year and a half. But we've said that it's been a focus for you to grow. And I believe that that's because of that strength. You want to be strong. Where can you grow? What can we do to help you? But in order to grow, you have to admit where you're weak. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if the mom guilt is getting in the way, I understand it. Or I don't understand it, rather. I'm not going to pretend that I understand, how your brain is wired yet. But what I will say is that even though it might be wired, or it might feel like you're driving off a cliff when you're in that place, that you should definitely continue to drive in that direction. And if you feel like you're driving off a cliff, just go ahead and drive. It's better to go that direction and just drive. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds crazy.
Drive off a cliff. Okay.
Well, because if you're, like, for instance, if you're dealing with anxiety and things of that nature, what is small can feel huge, right? Like it can literally feel like you're having, or if it's a panic attack or whatever. I'm not saying you're having all these things, but a small issue could feel huge, and it's really not. What I'm saying is, if it's an area where you're weak and you are getting ready to reveal it, and it feels like you're about to drive off a cliff, just do it. Just go.
I know exactly what you're trying to say. I do.
Yeah.
Drive off a cliff. That's an intense analogy. You're basically saying
it's
just
extreme, but those are extreme feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Well, I appreciate the fact that you can articulate that you can't necessarily understand how my brain is wired, but I think in having the conversation, and I think in having the conversation and saying, I don't understand what you're going through or why you feel like that. As many times as you said, it has made it okay with me knowing he might not understand yet, but he is ongoingly working towards trying to understand. I think of being able to say that, and that has made me be better about the fact that you might not know what I'm talking about, and it may not make sense to you, but it's not something that you ask about one time, don't understand, and then you abandon it entirely and completely.
Right.
And I think that might be part of the reason why a lot of times people will deal with mom guilt in isolation and in secret. And they aren't able to really share how they're feeling, because some people will just try to understand it once and then abandon it completely. Or they may not feel they have that safe space, that safe person to have that conversation with and be misunderstood with in that safe place.
Right.
I used to have a big thing about being misunderstood, and it was just, I mean, even now, it's a big deal for me to try and speak in a manner in which I know that I'm being understood by the person who I'm speaking to or with. And it's hard for me to know that, you know, I can talk and say and express, and the person is looking at me like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you just said. That's difficult for me because I enjoy being understood. But it's good that there is a safe space where I can be misunderstood until I'm finally understood.
Right.
And with something of this nature, because of circumstances and hormones and past, you know, mindsets and all these things jumbled together, it's a work in progress. And I know that this is just a season. And there will come a time where mom guilt is not at the forefront or at the helm of all of my emotional isms, because it's not uncommon. And at some point, they're going to be teenagers. I don't want to think about it, but they are going to be teenagers, and I'm going to be dealing with a whole nother slew of feelings and thoughts and emotions. But yeah, you know, I can appreciate the fact that mom guilt is something that it's not just me. I'm not going through it by myself. And I know that it's something that I can work through. So yeah, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing and talking and working through this with me, Travis.
No problem.
So yeah, y'all. I think we are going pretty long now, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But
yeah, Aaliyah's waking up.
Yeah, Aaliyah's waking up. I hope y'all can't hear her. I'm gonna go get her in a second. But anywho, yeah. So this is another episode of the Becoming One podcast.
All right.
Be easy.